Here's your host, Alex Garrett.
Well, on the Alex Garrett Sports Spotlight, this is sort of a full circle moment because one of my first friends from the Queens College baseball team, Brian Friedman, my gosh, that's a name everybody probably knows, is joining me right now. Coach Friedman, welcome to this version of the Alex Garrett podcast world. You were in the college version. This is the real world version, if you will. Thanks for joining me.
What an honor, Alex. Glad to be here.
So you are joining today because I see you are an award-winning coach. Tell me what's going on what day it is here, November 16th, 2023. Are you being honored somewhere? What's going on?
So the Greater New York Sandlot Alliance is an organization that runs baseball programming throughout New York, and they support a lot of things that maybe people don't even know about. They don't have their name on it. They're involved in a lot of high school, college, travel, Sandlot stuff, and they give out an award for coaching excellence for college, which is Charlie Barbieri, who was a former PSAL coach at Midway and is now at Maritime. He's won the College Coaching Excellence Award. I was given the High School for Public Coaching Excellence Award, and then there's also a private high school coaching excellence award.
Well, you know what I love about it is it's called the Sandlot, right? But you don't treat your coaching job as if it's a Sandlot game. You work these kids hard. You coach these kids as great as you can, and that's why I got the award. But what's it like transitioning from being a player to a coach in these last many years here since the college days?
Yeah, I actually remember when I first transitioned from playing at Queens College to coaching. My first job was at Madison, where I went. I would leave after the college season because the college season ended before the high school season, and I would go back home and I would volunteer at my old high school. And then after college, I ended up working at Madison, and I was an assistant baseball coach, and they offered me the head softball coach job. So I had my first head coaching experience at Madison. And then when I was there, I had an opportunity to leave and come to a school called Millennium. And when I was taking over the Millennium program with a guy named Aaron Silverman, who did a great job starting that program, and we worked together for a long time, I just tried to think about what my college experience was like, what was good about it, and then also, you were at Queens College, we weren't exactly the program that they are right now. So what our college experience was missing, and then try to bring it to the high school level and just give the kids an experience where they can be pushed and they can kind of see what the finish line looks like and what they might need to do to get there. Because at that point, we were a B division team, a low-level PSAL team, and we had some guys that knew what they were doing. We also had like a soccer player playing center field, and it was just kind of mixed in. And JP, when he was at Lincoln, I know that they had a lot of the same stuff. You just kind of get who tries out. And we gave the kids an opportunity to see what it could be like, introducing the weight room, introducing some, longer and more consistent practices. I think a big thing for us was playing non-league games. Like we were playing against schools, nothing against these schools, but like Juan Morel campus and schools I never heard of. And then when I got there, we started, scrimmaging Madison, losing by 1,000, scrimmaging all these other schools, losing by a lot. But showing the kids what high school baseball is supposed to look like. And then it grew from there. I think that a lot of coaches, base their coaching style off of their playing experience. And I definitely was able to look at what was good about my playing experience and what it was missing, and then try to give the kids the best I could out of both.
Now, I believe you made a champion out of these kids, right? Like you've gone to these championships on the high school level.
So we've been the last 2 years, we lost in the semis. We lost 2 years ago to Inwood in the semis. Quarters. I'm sorry, the quarters. And then last year we lost to Tottenville, who ended up winning the championship.
But that playoff experience, I mean, to get these kids to that level, what's that like?
It's a little frustrating to, JP always talks about like, we're not going to do it right there. And this is hopefully going to be our year to break it down. But, every team puts in a ton of work, obviously. Every team that's at that level has a pretty extensive off season. But these guys are working year round. And we want to try to give them an opportunity to make the final day, the championship game, and hopefully win it. Last year, especially, we were up 2-0 going into the 6th inning, and we blew it.
So, Brian, and by the way, introduce JP, because this is what I love about you. You're a team player. You're literally including your your right hand man here, who's helped you get this award, is what you were telling me off there.
Yeah. Yeah. So our coaching staff is really, really, I think we have the best coaching staff in New York City. We got 4 full-time guys. The staff is bigger this year. And a huge, huge piece of this, as soon as I got the job at John Jay, with Millennium transition to John Jay, which maybe we'll talk about at some point, I had it, JP was, I'm going to introduce him in a second, but he was working at Lincoln. And I'm good friends with Herbie Cruz, who's the coach over there. And I had talked to JP about if he'd be interested in taking on more responsibility because he was an assistant there. I said, would you be interested in kind of getting prepped to take over this program as head coach? And he said, yeah, he'd be interested, but he obviously didn't want to do anything disrespectful to Herbie and Mo. And I also felt the same way. I don't want to do anything disrespectful to Herbie and Mo, the coaches at Lincoln. So I had a conversation with him. I said, look, I have a kid now. I'm going to start being available less and less and less. And JP is younger and ready to, he's full force kind of guy. He's one of the busiest coaches I know. He's coaching until 10 p.m. every night. And so bringing him in has been like a godsend. So JP, I don't know if you want to introduce yourself, Ken.
Yeah, so my name is Jonathan Pinheiro, but everyone calls me JP, and I go by it. It's pretty much like household for everybody. No one ever calls me Jonathan Pinheiro anymore. It's always
his high school coaches, when we talk to them, they call him Jonathan.
That's about it. Everyone else is JP. But I'm excited to be here. When we got into the transition where we became John Jay Campus, and it was no longer just Millennium Baseball, we added the campus deal. Me and Friedman here sat down and we laid out basically a 5-year plan for the program on what we expect and how successful can we be over this 5 years. And we sat down. I was like, I think we could be successful right away and then build on that. And luckily for us, our last 2 seasons have been incredible seasons. Winning 10+ games each year, going to the quarterfinals. Last year, we actually made it to the championship of the famous James Monroe tournament. That was the first time either of us have achieved that as coaches.
And we co-won the division with Grant Street last year.
Yeah, and it was the first time someone else has won the division other than Grant Street.
A long time.
In the last 10 years. So we've been seeing success, and like you were just saying before, I feel like we're knocking at that door. And when you get to that 3rd year, for when you think about a big time college program and they're flirting with the national championship 2 years, you're like, all right, year 3, you got to knock it down, and where do you go from here? But it's a little different with high school baseball. You're trying to develop young athletes. You're trying to develop them as players, but not only as players, but emotionally and socially, and how they're going to react to wins and losses. So it was very tough to lose last year the way we did, especially with how good we were. And this year, like you said, that playoff experience, we have a few seniors that were part of the last 2 years of that team. And we have a big group of freshmen and sophomores that were a part of last year's team. So this year, we would like to knock that door down because we had that playoff experience. We experienced what it's like to be a good ball club. We know the expectation we have for ourselves as a team. So going into this year, we're super excited about our team. We have a lot of question marks in terms of what we have to do as coaches and what lineups we're going to put out there. But all 22 of our guys really love being around each other. And honestly, it's just a great atmosphere. And like you said, we have 4 coaches that are extremely involved. So it's been great.
Well,
you should come check out a practice, man. We'll get you some BP. I know you get on the field sometimes.
I would love to. Oh, those BP practices were great. I would love to do that. Now, obviously, the award is not just the on the field excellence, but you were talking about the character. So is it challenging to build a high school kid's character in this day and age with its phones, with the whole social media crap we're dealing with? I mean, that's got to be a challenge for you guys as coaches.
Yeah, it definitely is. And, we're lucky that we get kids that apply to this program and that want to come play for us are a certain caliber of student athlete. So the kids that come here, they're coming here with the intention of getting better, and they're coming here with the intention of being focused. We don't really have to spend much time selling the idea to kids about being like, that was in the early days of Millennium. We're trying to get kids to be like, hey, this is what it takes to be a high school athlete. The kids that come in here, they're ready to go. They really want to learn. They really want to be a part of something. And, having the prior experience of previous success helps. Kids that come in, they know, hey, this is the standard. This is what we got to do here. We had a situation I flipped out last practice, or 2 days ago, whatever it was. We were on the field. There was one day it was raining, and then we were on one field, and then we got kicked off. The soccer team came, and we had to go to another field. And one of our kids had his cell phone like with him or something, and it was in his back pocket. And I like lost it. I was like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "Coach, I'm sorry. It was on the field when we had to move over." And then so I might have taken it a little too far, but like sometimes there's not enough to flip out about because the kids are kind of doing the right thing all the time. So when I see an opportunity, I got to take it. Got to try to keep the kids in line.
Got you there. Now, I want to ask about the two-sport athlete because you mentioned you had a center fielder who was a soccer player. I mean, look, we can all agree here, right, that the two-sport athlete has kind of been discouraged. Specialization is a big deal in the high school world and whatnot. Do you guys encourage your players to, hey, play other sports when we're not in season?
Yeah, I'm gonna let JP talk about this, but JP's a two-sport coach. So
so I actually coach the girls cross country and indoor team here with Coach Eastboy, who oversees the whole entire program. But we do encourage multi-sport athletes. Our one of our first baseman outfielders, who's a senior, Carlos Almanzar, who is a name you're going to be looking out for this season. He plays both basketball and baseball. So he was one of our top hitters last year. He also led the city in rebounds last year in basketball. So that's like encouraging. So we want guys to do multiple sports. And in this building, not just our program, just overall, all the coaches are constantly communicating. Friedman does a great job as the athletic director, making sure all the coaches are on the same page. And we kind of communicate with practice time. We're like, hey, what days are you practicing? What days are we practicing? So that we can make sure the kid can get to both practices. And if you can't make it, we try to prioritize whatever sports in season. So like right now, basketball season is about to start. So Carlos has been showing up a little bit more to basketball practice than he has baseball practice. But we have other resources in the building to make sure he's still getting his baseball work in. So,
and what are those resources? So I know now you got me curious. What are those resources if they can't get on the mound or on the field, if you will?
So this is actually really cool. Something we built last year. We have something called the Pit. And you talk about social media. I'm pretty social media savvy. I love posting things about our program. I love posting things that we're doing well. And one of the things we built last year is we had our outside courtyard area. We built a turf facility for multiple sports. So originally it was just a garbage dump. There was just old chairs and desks and all these things. And to Freeman's credit, we believe that if you want nice things, sometimes you got to take care of it yourself. So we were like constantly talking with the school that, hopefully that people could clean this out for us until one day we were like, you know what, let's just get the kids to clean it out. So we would practice on Saturdays, and it basically took 6 different Saturdays because that's how much garbage was there. And we would finish practice, and for 20 minutes, we would try to clear up as much garbage as we can. Eventually,
he must have learned that from Rob Twyble, because Rob at Queens College would take a space and make it useful after being vacant for years. I mean, the whole turnaround of that field at Queens College is to Rob's credit. I feel like you're channeling Rob with that. Let's create something here out of
that. There's
right?
an opportunity. Let's take advantage. Yeah.
So now we have in that turf facility, we have a batting cage. We could bring our mounds down there. So now we can take ground balls. We can hit batting practice before school. Also, our track team and our soccer teams use it as well for different.
And this is indoors or outdoors? Because remember,
this is outdoors. This one's outside.
Outdoors.
It's right outside our courtyard. Like if we just turn left through this out this office door, it's right outside. And
it's actually pretty cool. The cafeteria has like an overhang. So sometimes we'll be taking BP, we'll be swinging, and there's just like kids staring down, like looking at what's going on.
Yeah. So we actually used it this morning. 4 players texted me this morning, like, hey, coach, I want to come in before school to get some batting practice. And I threw to 4 different guys in the morning. We both get here at like 7 a.m. to start our days, well before the kids are here. So at any point, if a kid wants to get extra work, we're just here, we're willing to do it.
Coach, and I'm going to ask you about this, but Coach Friedman, I know that before the whole coaching started, you were running pitching clinics, you were doing different clinics with the kids. How were you able to parlay those clinics into coaching jobs? I mean, did they go hand in hand or what?
Well, I mean, I think it's a little bit different. I think that I have my baseball camp, which is 4 to 12-year-old kids. And a lot of that turned into running clinics and doing lessons and stuff like that. But I don't really see that, but people might disagree with me. I don't really see that as coaching as much as I see that as training. And so I think private lessons is more like being a trainer. I think and same thing for running a camp. I think that's being a camp coach is different than running a team. Like with a team, I think you're a coach if you've got a bunch of guys that consider themselves family, that you're at the head of the family, they feel like they can count on you, you feel like you can count on them. There's no money changing hands. Your playing is not dependent on if you paid your $5,000 summer fee. You don't need to have, there's no donation that's going to get you a better standing. So for me, finding a school that I wanted to teach at, which I found in Millennium, Brooklyn, which is in the John Jay campus, and then kind of just having a good reputation in the community is something that I think leads to coaching opportunities. And I had an opportunity during COVID to coach at St. Joseph's College, which is now St. Joseph's University. And that was, I don't even remember how, I think I might have even just reached out and said, the coach at the time, Pete, who's now moved on to another job, he's coaching at Suffolk. At that point, I just reached out and he had come down to, one of the things I like to do with John Jay and Millennium, have college coaches come down and talk to the kids. So he had come down a couple of times and I'd say, hey, just so you know, this is the closest college to my house. I'm sitting at my house during COVID, where there's no high school season. You looking for an assistant? I'll come down and I'll work on. And then just based on relationships, there was not even really an interview process. And then I met with the athletic director, Mag, so that worked out well too. But wow. I think just developing relationships and doing right by people is what's going to help you with coaching positions. In terms of getting a clientele for training, I think that's a little bit different. I mean, I could just, any kid that I ever worked with ever, or that like sat in the same room as me, I can say, hey, this kid's playing at Duke. You should work with me, so I'll get you to play at Duke too. I think that's a little bit different.
JP, how about you? Have you ran in clinics as well? And coming into this whole job, did you have that experience? Or?
So the reason Friedman makes this space is I do training, I do private lessons, and I run my own camps and clinics as well. A lot of them. So just earlier he was telling you that I coach till 10 pretty much every night. And that's not an exaggeration. That's the truth. Usually we'll after school practice, I run to do 3 or 4 lessons, or sometimes I have a camp or whatever it may be. And just like Freeman said, I kind of attack both of them slightly different. I do take my code of coaching. I still try to take the kids I train and try to teach them life skills as we're learning. Sometimes we'll get sidetracked in the middle of our lesson. We'll just talk about school or how their day was. I really try to get to know the players I'm working with so I can build that relationship with them to make them work that much harder. And I take pride in that. So I would say they are different. I think training and coaching are a little bit different, but they do go hand in hand because I just try to carry both and I try to treat it all the same as much as I can. There are some side factors that do matter in terms of training and coaching, but I am very involved in the training and travel ball world and running camps and clinics. Sometimes I come down and work the clinics that Coach Freeman's are hosting. Just like he's just said about relationships, I have a great deal of relationships with several coaches who run camps and clinics. And I'm kind of the guy that likes to go to multiple events and work those events. I have 1 or 2 events that are my own that I only run. The majority of the events I go to for other people because I just want to spread my knowledge with as many people as I can.
And that's the thing I think that makes our staff really work is like we disagree on a lot of things, but we all like the core things and like how we treat people and how we treat our program, how we treat our kids, we're all in line about. So like I hate travel ball.
I like travel.
One of our other coaches, Andrew Santella, like started and ran an amazing travel program for a long time. One of our other coaches, Johnny Faison, has been with Brooklyn Bonnies for 20 years, which is another great travel program. One of our other coaches, Garrett, he's the JV head coach, lives in Long Island, and like isn't involved in the travel world at all, but like just knows his stuff and doesn't need to be involved, doesn't do like clinics and stuff like that. So we all come from slightly different places, but it all works.
I'm glad you asked that because my next question was actually going to be about switching from pitching focus, right, to an entire team focus. I mean, obviously you got your bench coach, your hitting coach, but here you are, you're primarily a pitcher. But you have to have those skills and knowledge of all different parts of baseball, right, to be the head coach of a program.
Yeah, well, it's funny. Like, that's the same reason I don't really play softball. Like, a lot of guys, when they're done playing baseball in college, they'll go, like, play in, like, a hardcore softball league. I can't do that because the only thing I'm good at is pitching. And like, if I were to go play, like, people would be like, oh, you're a college baseball player, you should go play shortstop. I'll be terrible. So same thing with coaching. Like, what I really, really know is pitching, but I know enough to know what I don't know. So that's why I need JP will work with our infielders. Santello will work with our outfielders. Johnny's going to work with our catchers. Garrett's going to work with some hitters. Like, we'll bring in guys, and I have a lot of guys that we'll consider like friends of the program, advisors, like Dan Palumbo, Rocky Medina, just some guys that I'll like, I was on the phone with all these guys all the time. Just to be like, hey, what's your perspective on this? I'll call up Ferber sometimes, and I'll be like, hey, Ferber, what do you think about? I'm trying to run a more efficient BP. So Ferber, I don't know if you know who that is, but Jason Ferber like came down to one of our practices and just like sat through the practice and was like, Brian, why don't you, like, these guys aren't doing anything. What about if you set up a station here and just do that? And just, I think to be a good coach, you kind of got to realize that you don't know. And so to be able to bring in guys that do know more than you do about certain things is the way to be successful in my mind.
Maybe both of you have a different answer to this, but obviously you're getting this award. That means you're changing kids' lives. So any kid that you've noticed a dramatic turnaround, not just on the field, but in life, I mean, would you say some of these kids are sort of looking for a purpose in high school? So you guys help them find that purpose. I mean, what would you say about that? Any turnarounds that you could talk to us about?
So it's funny because we don't get like, now we do a little more at John Jay, but when it was Millennium, which was the bulk of the high school coaching that I did, it was not your typical like, oh man, this kid comes from a troubled background, we got to get him straight. The typical Millennium kid was like helicopter parent, like missing every weekend to go to the Hamptons, every possible resource, and the kids are not able to deal with adversity. So what I would try to do is present them with challenges, and things are already easy for them. So we've had kids in the past that do come from like troubled background. This is hard. They don't have a lot of support. For those kids, you try to make it a little bit easier. You want to bring them in. For kids that everything's already so easy, for try to make it a little bit harder, get them to learn how to deal with some challenges. So I can say, not that I know what the people's lives would have been otherwise, but I can say former players will talk to me years after and say, Coach, you really impacted me with this one thing. I remember one thing you said to me. I remember one thing we did. I remember we were having lunch one time, blah, blah, blah. And thank you for impacting my life in this way. And oftentimes it's really not the kid that's like living in a shelter and needs someone to like bring them lunch. Like, I've had kids like that where like I'm bringing in food for a kid because they don't have but most of the time it's like the kid who is like overprivileged and over-resourced and needs some adversity. And I like adversity, so I like to be able to give kids a chance to struggle.
John Jay campus, by the way, that's actually where where is John Jay campus?
So John Jay campus is in Park Slope in Brooklyn.
Okay, in Brooklyn.
It has nothing to do with John Jay College in the city. So just a 30-second overview. John Jay campus. John Jay is a really old school in Park Slope that used to be called Manual Training until like the 50s. And it became John Jay. And then in like 2000, when Bloomberg took over, Bloomberg broke down failing schools, of which John Jay was one. And they became campuses. So inside John Jay, there's 4 schools. There's Park Slope Collegiate, Millennium Brooklyn, John Jay School for Law, and Cyber Arts Studio Academy. All 4 of those schools, plus Millennium High School in Manhattan, play together as John Jay campus. Whereas 3 years ago, Millennium Brooklyn and Millennium High School in Manhattan were Millennium Athletics, and the other schools in John Jay were John Jay Athletics. And then during the pandemic, there had been some push beforehand to merge the athletic department because, the strain on resources, it created some tension in the building. There being competing programs. And then when everything was on pause during the pandemic, we took it as a good opportunity to make things well. I'm also the athletic director, so I was involved in those conversations to try to, unify things.
Wow, and that's the switch from Millennium to John Jay. What you were wanting to talk about that change over?
Yeah, so Millennium was a really interesting program. It was really only like academically elite kids, which doesn't always coincide with being athletically elite. And it was a very small pool to choose kids from. It was like 650 kids. And we had only varsity. And so we would take kids on the team that really, by a lot of rights, skill-wise, didn't really belong on a varsity baseball team. And then John Jay Baseball was the same. John Jay Baseball was at a lower level, and they were just whatever kid, like pretty much if you tried out, you made a team. And then when we merged, we got a JV team, which has been huge for development. We were able to get more coaches, which has been huge for development. The facilities were no longer like fighting for who's got which gym space when. We're all working together. The merger's been really, really good for the athletic.
So what I just want to add to the merger, because this is when me and Freeman started talking about like the 5-year plan for the program. I started subbing during COVID in this building, so me and him got to see each other every day, and then we really started sitting down and talking about how we could elevate. At first, it became how could we elevate each other's program, because I was still coaching at Lincoln. And then he basically presented to me that, I'm having kids, things are becoming a little bit more difficult to be around, and I'm a very motivated person and I'm very involved. So we talked about me jumping on board and things. And one thing that I really do take pride in is as much as I am a nice person, I am a very competitive person. I like to win. And in the process of winning, I want to have fun, but it's fun to win. And I imagine that when I became a coach, I wanted to try to be a coach that taught his players how to be good people, and we win a lot on top of being good people. So when the merger was happening, we sat down and I looked at it like, in 5 years, we might be one of the best teams in the city in 5 years. That should be our goal with this merger, because you'll have access to more players, we'll have access to more facilities, we'll have more resources. So for me, when he pitched the idea about the school merging, for me, it was one of the icebreakers to join the program. And I said, if the merger falls through, I was like, I'll come coach. And that was really what has elevated our program the last 2 years. Just because now we could bring in, just like you were saying, creating adversity for that type of player. The Millennium student usually historically has come from a good background, a good family. Now we have kids coming from everywhere. We have families with the resources. We have a middle-class family. Maybe we have a few kids that don't really have it as much as the kid next to them. But we're creating an environment for all of them to be successful and learn good habits from each other. In doing so, we're creating good young men. And then on top of that, we're winning baseball games.
Well, I got to ask you this then, because we're talking about the parenting. I think parenting's changed a lot in high school too, meaning the helicopter world is too much for even the coaches, and umpires don't want to ump anymore because the parents.
Yeah, we've lost a lot of umpires.
Do you have to have some kind of like, how do you guys deal with the parents? I guess is my question. I don't want to say it like that, but how do you deal with it?
No, I mean, I have found that if you don't bring them in and really make them a part of the program, and you don't help them feel welcomed and help them feel involved, then they're going to get themselves involved, and that's not what you're going to want. So we make sure we're scheduling our parent meeting for next week. Every morning, not every morning, every year, we have a meeting with the parents, and we don't take the kids on a team if we don't at least get to talk to their parents one time and make sure that they know the expectations, they know what they can expect from us. Missing a practice because you have a family thing that starts at 8 o'clock, but you want to be home so you can get dressed. Like, that's not acceptable. You'll go to the family thing after, and you'll make it work together, or
not go.
Yeah. So, but then also the parents got to know, like, you can expect that your kid's going to be safe with 4 adults, and they're going to take care of your kid. We're going to make sure he's academically in line, and we're going to make sure he's respectful. And if he's not, then it's not going to be a right fit. It's not like we're not interested in kicking kids off the team. We're interested in making kids understand what the expectations are.
And you're interested in preparing them for the future. I know that sounds cliche, but your role also, I'm sure, is to get them ready for the real world, which is then college ball, maybe, or maybe even a draft in the major leagues, or, just life after sports. Also, there's a whole bunch of options, but I'm sure you kind of tailor how you work with each kid based on where you see them going, right?
Yeah, we've had a lot of our kids do end up playing in college. Last year, every single kid that graduated was playing in college. That happens often. But also, some of our best players that have ever been through our program have just decided not to play in college. Not because they couldn't do it. One of the best players we ever had, flat out, could have played at a lot of different schools, but just decided he wanted to go to Penn State. And he interned with the football team, which was a great experience. Now he's working for the NFL. So, like, kids have different outcomes that aren't, maybe that's not what I would want to do, but I wanted to go play at a low-level Division II school. So everyone's got to do is what works best for them. And so we support that regardless of what it is.
JP and Coach Freeman, Coach Brian, I got to ask you about this. While you mentioned the college level, any coaches that, and I believe you went to Malloy, right? Archbishop Malloy, Brian, or where did you go to high school?
I went to Madison in Brooklyn.
Madison. Okay. Well, based on the college experience, the high school experience, any coach that could say made an impact on you, and you can both answer that question.
For me personally, I went to Bishop Ford. I went to a Catholic school in Brooklyn, not too far from John Jay. The coach that impacted me, his name was my high school varsity baseball coach. His name was Mike Hanrahan. He's currently the head JV coach at Farrell in Staten Island. And he's actually an alumni of John Jay campus. He was actually on the last city championship team in 86. 83 that was here. I would say he's the coach that impacted me because the group of players that I had on my high school team, we had a lot of different personalities, and he was actually the perfect fit as an ex-cop or detective, I should say, to discipline all of us and push us to that next level. And the way he ran practices and structured everything and just how in-depth he got with baseball really made me love the game that much extra. I think at that point is when I knew that, like, I would probably be coaching later in life, just because of his attention to detail. And I found the same need to focus on the attention to detail. So that's my experience of the coach that impacted me. There's other coaches that did the same thing. I would just say the same for Jerry Katsky with the Bonnies and Pete McCarthy, which was one of my youth coaches when I was 6 years old. But it's not just one coach, but if I could name those three, those are the three I would like to highlight.
Yeah, for me, like at different points in my life, I've had coaches that have taught me different things. So like when I was a kid, I grew up in a single mom house. And so Lou Barletta was my coach at St. Athanasius. And he used to pick me up and drive me around, not like in like a chauffeur. Like he would like pack like 9 kids into their like Oldsmobile Cutlass Sierra. So like I really learned from him how to really, if you're going to commit to a kid or you're going to commit to a team, you got to really commit to them. Then after that, when I was in high school, my coach Vinny Kayaza was super prepared. And so I'm not a particularly organized person. I'm a pretty messy person. I don't really write up too detailed lesson plans for when I teach. If it wasn't for my wife, my house would be a total mess. But when I write up practice plans, the practice plans are pretty, to the minute. And I learned that from my high school coach. Then in college, Greg Jeffries was our pitching coach, and he was the associate head coach. I learned a lot from him in terms of relating to players. He was the kind of guy that had just what seems to be an unlimited amount of knowledge of the game, but he would never chase guys down to teach them stuff. He wanted to work with the guys who wanted to work. So I learned a lot about, how to allocate your time and how to, really you can figure out who's serious about this from him. And then beyond college, I played for Joe Victor, who's a legendary Sandlot coach. He was one of the guys in the Greater New York Sandlot Alliance, actually.
What a guy. And, unfortunately, he passed on, but what a guy.
Yeah. And so one of the things I learned from Joe was just, standards. And if you have a certain standard, like that's the standard. He was rough sometimes. There'd be guys that would get shelled, and they'll come back in the dugout, he'd be riding. And so I remember one time a kid was like, "I'm trying my best out there." He's like, "Your best isn't good enough." It's like, wow, that's rough. You're just getting shelled. And so some people didn't like that, but I didn't get shelled that often, so it didn't really happen.
I feel like that carried into Queens College because he was pretty vocal behind the plate there for years.
Yeah, he had one tooth. He was getting after it.
That's right, and that's a sign of a great coach. Well, this has been fun, and we can go on and on, but for both of you, those aspiring to be in your shoes, if you will, like coaches and maybe in travel ball managers and whatnot, what could you say to those that may not want to put in the work that you guys clearly are doing, or think it's easy to be a baseball coach? Let's put it that way.
Easy to be bad at a lot of things. I would say that if you're going to take on a responsibility to be a coach, then you really should understand that means taking on a lot of responsibility. Like right now, I'm not able to be there all the time. I have 2 kids. Like today, I'm going right from here to pick up my son and bring him back to our practice. I know that's going to be a headache, and that wouldn't be possible without our coaching staff that's there to handle everything. I know that, look, right now, I'm just not in a place where I can do the kind of stuff that I used to do. So what the best thing that I can do is put the right people in place. And, JP's the right person, Santella's the right person, Johnny Faison's the right person, Coach K is the right person. And then we got a new bullpen guy who just graduated Dickinson. We're finding out. I think he's all in too. So we're excited.
And JP,
for me, I would say anyone that takes on the coaching umbrella or any style of coaching, not just baseball, you got to be fully invested. Because and what I mean by that, it's I know Freeman's saying that he's short on time, but he is invested. He is there when he can be, and he's putting people in the right place. But as a coach, if you're not invested, kids can feel that. And if they feel that, then you're not going to get the respect or the focus that you need from the kids to really push them to that next level. So if they don't feel that from you, then you're going to lose them. So if you're starting to coach and you're not genuine about what you're teaching and how you feel, and you just have like, and you're one-minded in your ways, kids are going to feel that and you won't get the same response you're looking for. So I think the best coaches are the ones that just care. If you care a little bit, even if you don't have that much knowledge in the specific sport, if you show you care, I think you could platform anything.
Both of you teach, right? You both teachers at this school or
Yes.
John Jay campus?
I teach at Park Slope Collegiate, so I teach on the 4th floor of the building. And
I teach a little bit of mine. Do you remember Alum from Queens College?
Yeah, Alan Zoo. I remember him.
What'd you think of him?
He was great, and I'm trying to remember now that you mentioned him. He come to the gym a lot though over the years, I believe.
Yeah,
but
it didn't work out though. He teaches with us too. He's right here right now.
Oh, Alan. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Well, this has been great. Now the big thing I want to also know is how the New York State Baseball Hall of Fame is going to be recognizing these awards, because I see they're speaking. The president is speaking there that night on November 16th.
Yeah, so the New York State Baseball Hall of Fame just opened, and so they have the president down. He's gonna be coming in and hopefully sharing some great information so people can know more about it. And hopefully that's an organization that continues to grow. I think it's a great thing. I think that obviously with the National Baseball Hall of Fame being in New York also, I think when people think of New York and the Hall of Fame, they think of the National Hall of Fame. But New York State also, there's a lot of great stuff happening just here. So it's good to have its own Hall of Fame here.
Well, congratulations. And is this event open to the public? Are there ways to get tickets to this kind of
event? It's at Roosters on the Bay. If you go to the Greater New York Sandlot Alliance website, it's GNYSAA, Greater New York Sandlot Athletic Alliance, GNYSAA.com, or you can just Google Sandlot Alliance. This is the big dinner that they put on every year. This is a big fundraiser for them actually to continue to do what they do. So it's $100 if anybody wants to come. You're welcome to sit at the table right next to us, Alex. We'd love to have you.
Well, one last thing, Brian, I cannot let you go without asking this. The Queens College baseball team actually won the ECC this year, and they won their first ever, for a while, Division II NCAA tournament game. I mean, what's your thought as a Queens College alumnus watching all of that program come together?
I didn't know that I was ever I used to think about like people who went to like Miami or Texas and like they would wear like the sweatshirts and they'd be like, hook 'em, and then like have all this like pride in their college. And I never really felt that at all. I was like, yeah, I went to Queens College. I was on full financial aid. It was free. I got a job. I played baseball. That was cool. I met good people. Kevin Salguero, great dude. Greg Jeffries, great coach. Like I met a lot of good people. But I never really had like pride in the school. And then all of a sudden they started going on this run last year. And I was like, hell yeah, Queens College, baby. It's going nice. And they're like, I guess that feels good. I guess that's what other people who go to like regular big colleges feel like sometimes. Miami's whatever. There you go.
Well, this has been fun, guys. And yeah, I would love to be there on the 16th and support you in that event. And then maybe we'll do another one later on in the year after the ceremony. I'd love to do another podcast.
Yeah, man. We'll do it from the field. Come to practice.
All right, let's do that. All right, this has been Alex Garrett with Coach Brian Friedman, and JP is his right-hand man over here, coming to you from the John Jay campus. Thank you both for joining me on the Alex Garrett Sports Spotlight.
You're like, great talking, AJ. Alex.